My wife accepted a proposal from another man at our own company gala, in front of 400 people, including me. I need to get this out before I completely lose my mind. My name's Andrew, and until 3 days ago, I thought I had a pretty good life. I'm a software engineer, co-founded a medical AI company called Helix One with my wife Melissa about 6 years ago. We've been married for 8 years total. The company's worth around $200 million now. We developed this diagnostic system that can identify rare diseases that traditional methods miss. It's been my life's work, honestly. So here's what happened. We were hosting our annual gala at the Fairmont downtown, fancy black tie affair. All our investors, major clients, some local politicians, the works. About 400 people total. This was supposed to be our biggest night. We just landed a contract with 3 major hospital networks, and everyone was there to celebrate. Melissa was in her element. She's always been the face of the company while I handle the technical side. She was working the room, giving interviews to TechCrunch, posing for photos. Standard stuff. I was mostly hanging back, talking shop with some of the other engineers and a few potential partners. Then Arthur Henson showed up. For context, Arthur's this 45-year-old CEO who's made a career out of acquiring startups. Smooth talker, expensive suits, drives a Maserati. He's been circling our company for months, making these friendly overtures about partnerships and investments. Always gave me bad vibes, but Melissa said I was being paranoid. About halfway through the evening, the lights dimmed for presentations. Melissa was supposed to give the keynote about our expansion plans. She got up on stage, started her usual spiel about innovation and saving lives. Everything normal. Then Arthur walked onto the stage. I was sitting at a front table, watching this unfold, thinking maybe he was going to announce some partnership or investment. The crowd went quiet. Arthur took the microphone from Melissa, and I swore she looked surprised for like half a second before this weird smile crossed her face. "Ladies and gentlemen," Arthur said, "I came here tonight to make an announcement that I hope will overshadow any business news." That's when he got down on one freaking knee. The crowd gasped. I literally felt my blood turn cold. This had to be some kind of joke, right? Some elaborate PR stunt. "Melissa, you're the brilliant mind behind Helix One. You've revolutionized medical diagnosis and saved countless lives. You deserve to be with someone who recognizes your true worth, not someone who's held you back." He pulled out this massive diamond ring. I'm talking seriously huge, probably cost more than most people's cars. "Will you leave your failure of a husband and marry me?" The room was dead silent. Every eye in the place was darting between Arthur, Melissa, and me. I felt like I was watching this happen to someone else. My wife of 8 years was on stage, looking down at another man proposing to her, and all I could do is sit there like a freaking statue. Melissa covered her mouth with her hands, tears starting to form. She looked out into the crowd, made eye contact with me for just a second, and I swore I saw something that looked almost like guilt, but it disappeared real quick. Then she grabbed the microphone. "Yes," she said, her voice carrying across the entire ballroom. "Yes, I'll marry you. I'm done settling for a failure." Arthur beamed, slipped the ring on her finger, and kissed her right there on stage while 400 people watched my marriage end in real time. The room erupted. Half the crowd started clapping. I guess they thought this was some kind of romantic movie moment. The other half looked as confused and horrified as I felt. The reporters went absolutely nuts, cameras flashing everywhere. I stood up, I don't even remember deciding to do it, and just walked out. Didn't say a word to anyone, got in my car and drove home. That was 3 nights ago. Melissa hasn't been home since. She's been posting on Instagram from Arthur's penthouse, showing off the ring, talking about new beginnings and following your heart. The tech blogs are having a field day. Power couple split rocks medical AI world. Helix One's future in question after founder's dramatic exit. That kind of shit. People are acting like Arthur did something romantic, like he swept some neglected woman off her feet. I'm getting messages from acquaintances saying maybe this was for the best and that I should let her be happy. But here's what nobody knows. I built this freaking company. Not we built it. I built it. Every algorithm, every line of core code, every technical breakthrough that made Helix One what it is came from me. I put in 80-hour weeks for 6 years. I mortgaged my dad's house to fund the initial development when no investor would touch us. Melissa handled PR and investor relations. Don't get me wrong, she's good at that stuff. But the entire technical foundation that made us worth $200 million. That was me working alone in our garage at 3 a.m. while she was sleeping. And Arthur knows this. He's been fishing for details about our technology for months, always asking about our proprietary methods and whether we documented everything properly. Now I'm wondering if this whole romantic gesture was just a really elaborate corporate raid. I'm still processing what my next move should be. Part of me wants to fight this immediately, but I'm smart enough to know I need to understand the full situation first. Everyone keeps telling me to move on and focus on my own happiness. But they don't understand, Helix One isn't just my company. It's my life's work. And if Arthur thinks he can just waltz in and take what I built, he's about to learn otherwise. Edit. A lot of you are asking about prenups and ownership stakes. Yes, we have a prenup. And yes, the ownership situation is complicated. I'm getting some legal advice before I say more about that. Update 1. So it's been about 10 days since the gala disaster, and I've learned some things that make this whole situation way darker than I originally thought. I'm honestly not sure if I'm more angry or impressed by how calculated this whole thing was. First off, I hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, I went straight to Claire Hill. For those who don't know, she's basically the nuclear option when it comes to intellectual property disputes. Cost me $20K just to get her to take a meeting, but it was worth every penny. Claire spent the week doing what she called forensic business archaeology. Basically, she traced every interaction Arthur had with our company over the past 8 months. And holy shit, what we found explains everything. This wasn't some grand romantic gesture. It was a hostile takeover disguised as a love story. Here's the timeline. Arthur first contacted us in January, supposedly interested in a partnership. Nothing unusual there, we get inquiries all the time. But Claire found out he'd already been researching our company for months before that. He knew exactly how much we were worth, who our major clients were, what our growth projections looked like. More importantly, he knew that our corporate structure had some vulnerabilities. See, when Melissa and I started Helix One, we were young and stupid about business stuff. We set up the company as 50-50 partners because it seemed fair, and we were married. What we didn't account for was how the investment rounds would work. Each time we brought in investors, they required us to maintain parity. Meaning if I got more equity for technical contributions, Melissa had to get equivalent equity for her roles. On paper, this looked fine. In reality, it meant that 40% of our ownership was tied up in these parity agreements. And under California law, those agreements could be challenged in a divorce settlement. Arthur figured out that if he could convince Melissa to leave me, he could probably acquire her stake, then use the chaos of a divorce to challenge the ownership structure and grab more. Guy's done this before. Claire found 3 other companies where he used similar tactics. But here's the really messed up part. Melissa wasn't just a victim in this. She was actively helping him. Claire's team traced some unusual network activity over the past few months. Someone with admin access had been copying sensitive files from our internal servers. Client lists, technical specifications, financial projections, everything you'd need to understand our business inside and out. That someone was Melissa. She'd been feeding Arthur information about our operations for months. The worst part. Arthur had already started reaching out to our key engineers. James, our lead AI developer, told me yesterday that he'd gotten a call from Arthur's company offering him a 40% salary increase and equity in a revolutionary new medical AI startup. The offer was dated 2 weeks before the gala. 2 freaking weeks. They were already planning to gut our company before he even proposed. I confronted Melissa about this yesterday. She's been staying at Arthur's place, but I caught her at our office cleaning out her desk. Security let her in before I could update the access lists. That's been fixed now. The conversation didn't go how I expected. I was ready for her to deny everything, maybe try to gaslight me into thinking I was being paranoid. Instead, she just looked exhausted. "You want to know the truth, Andrew?" she said. "I've been invisible in my own company for 6 years. Every interview, every article, every industry event, people talk to me for 5 minutes about marketing strategy and then spend an hour asking if they can meet the real genius behind Helix One. Do you know what that feels like?" I tried to explain that the technical work was just what I was good at, that her contributions were equally important. But she cut me off. "Arthur sees my potential. He wants to build something where I'm not just the pretty face in the conference room. I'll be Chief Innovation Officer of his new medical division. My own team, my own budget, my own identity. Built on stolen technology," I said. She just shrugged. "Built on technology that wouldn't exist without my networking, my relationship management, my business development. You wrote some code, Andrew. I made it into an empire." That's when I knew there was no coming back from this. The woman I married was gone. Maybe she'd been gone for years and I just hadn't noticed. But here's the thing, and this is where Claire earned every penny of her fee. All of Melissa's contributions were documented. Every email, every meeting, every decision was tracked in our corporate systems. And what the record shows is that while Melissa was great at presenting our work, the actual business relationships, the key technical partnerships, even most of the major sales were driven by people I'd hired and managed. Melissa was essentially a very expensive PR coordinator. Claire's preliminary analysis suggests that if this goes to court, Melissa's claim to 50% ownership wouldn't hold up. Her actual contributions to the company's value were closer to 8% based on documented business activities. The parity agreements were based on inflated assessments of her role that won't survive scrutiny. More importantly, the data theft gives us grounds for criminal charges against both Melissa and Arthur. Industrial espionage is a federal crime, and Claire thinks we have enough evidence to put Arthur away for 5 to 10 years. The board meeting is coming soon. Arthur's been telling investors that he's going to stabilize the company during this transition and that his experience will help us scale faster. He has no idea what's coming. Edit. A lot of you are asking about the employees. Most of the team is sticking with me. James actually laughed when he told me about Arthur's offer. Apparently, the revolutionary medical AI Arthur described was just a less sophisticated version of what we built 3 years ago. Update 2. Today was the day, and it went even better than I hoped. I've been working with Claire Hill, and we've built what she calls an airtight case. Not just for the divorce stuff, we're talking potential criminal charges, SEC violations, the works. Arthur messed with the wrong engineer. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. Our board is small, me, Melissa, 3 investor representatives, and 2 independent members. Arthur had requested to attend as an interested party with relevant expertise in scaling medical technology companies. The board agreed, probably figuring it was just some routine consultation. I showed up early with Claire and her associate. We had boxes of documents, forensic reports, everything. The board members looked a little confused by the production, but Melissa seemed to think it was just normal legal prep for discussing the divorce's impact on company operations. Arthur came in wearing this $5,000 suit, all confidence and smiles. Shook hands with everyone, complimented the office renovations, made small talk about market conditions. Real smooth operator. Melissa was quieter than usual, but she seemed calm enough. The meeting started with routine business, quarterly reports, budget approvals, that kind of stuff. Then our board chair, Sandra, brought up the ownership transition discussion. Arthur stood up with this PowerPoint presentation about strategic partnerships and leveraging combined resources for accelerated growth. He talked for 20 minutes about his vision for Helix One, how his acquisition experience could take us to the next level, how sometimes personal changes create business opportunities. Then he got to his proposal. He wanted to acquire Melissa's stake in the company, immediately invest $50 million for expansion, and bring me on as Chief Technology Officer in the new structure. Essentially, he'd become the majority owner and CEO, while I'd be reduced to a senior employee. A few of the board members were nodding along. I could see why. The guy was offering to inject serious capital and promising aggressive growth targets. That's when I stood up. Before we discuss any ownership changes, I said, I think the board should be aware of some information that's come to light regarding Mr. Lang's activities over the past few months. Arthur's smile flickered for just a second, but he recovered quickly. Of course, transparency is important in any business relationship. Claire opened the first box of documents. I pulled out the first folder. These are access logs from our internal servers over the past 6 months. They show systematic unauthorized copying of proprietary technical specifications, client data, and financial projections. Melissa went pale. Arthur's smile was completely gone now. The access was traced to administrative accounts belonging to Mrs. Collins. However, forensic analysis of the copied files shows they were accessed from IP addresses registered to Mr. Lang's business addresses. Sandra leaned forward. Are you saying there was unauthorized access to company data? I'm saying there was industrial espionage, I replied, and I can prove it. Claire took over. These are communication records between Mr. Lang and 5 Helix One employees, offering positions at his company with knowledge of Helix One technology. Some of these communications predate his public relationship with Mrs. Collins by several weeks. She handed out copies of the emails. You could see the board members' faces changing as they read them. I pulled out the next folder, the big one. These are the original incorporation documents, patent filings, and technical specifications for Helix One's core technology. They show that I'm entitled to 72% ownership of this company based on documented technical contributions and initial funding from my personal resources. Arthur finally found his voice. Now wait a minute, this is clearly a hostile response to a legitimate business proposal. Claire cut him off. Mr. Lang, are you familiar with federal laws about stealing business secrets? Based on our analysis, you and Mrs. Collins have potentially committed multiple serious crimes that could land you both in federal prison. The room went dead quiet. Melissa looked like she was going to throw up. Arthur was just staring at the documents. Furthermore, I looked directly at Melissa for the first time. The equality agreements we signed were based on business development activities that were largely performed by other employees, using systems and relationships I established. Your actual documented contributions to company value are lower than the 50% equity stake you currently hold, approximately 8% of our current valuation. Arthur finally exploded. This is ridiculous. You can't just rewrite history because your wife realized she deserved better than being married to some antisocial code monkey. Wrong thing to say. Sandra's face hardened. She's built 2 companies from scratch herself, and she doesn't tolerate disrespect in boardrooms. Mr. Lang, she said coldly, I think you should leave. Immediately. Arthur looked around the room, realized he had 0 allies, and grabbed his briefcase. This isn't over, he said to me. I have lawyers too. Claire smiled at him. Mr. Lang, my office will be in touch tomorrow morning regarding potential settlement discussions. I'd strongly recommend you retain criminal defense counsel. After Arthur left, we spent another 2 hours going through the restructuring proposal. The board voted unanimously to authorize the ownership changes and to pursue legal action against both Arthur and Melissa. Melissa didn't say a single word during the entire presentation. She just sat there looking smaller and smaller as each folder of evidence was presented. When the meeting ended, she came up to me. Andrew, I didn't know it would go this far. Arthur said it was just business negotiation tactics. You gave him our source code, Melissa, our client lists. You helped him plan to destroy everything we built together. I thought I deserved more recognition. I thought I was worth more than just standing behind you at conferences. You were worth more, I said. You could have been worth a lot more, but you decided to try to steal it instead of earn it. She started crying then, but I was done. I walked away. I'm writing this from my office at 11 p.m. Most of the staff knows something big happened today, and I'll brief them tomorrow morning. I think most of them will be relieved. Arthur's recruitment attempts had people worried about layoffs and restructuring. The weird thing is, I don't feel as Arthurius as I thought I would. Mostly I just feel tired and sad that it came to this. But Helix One is mine now. Really mine. Final update. It's been 6 months since that board meeting, and I figured it was time for a final update since so many of you have been asking for the resolution. First, the legal stuff. Arthur Lang is screwed. Like, monumentally screwed. Claire and her team spent 4 months building the federal case against him, and what they found made the original espionage charges look like jaywalking. Turns out Arthur's entire business model was basically a house of cards. He'd been using the money and assets from companies he bought to get loans to buy even more companies, creating this giant web of debt that was always one bad month away from total collapse. Think of it like someone using credit cards to pay off other credit cards. Eventually, you run out of rope. The Helix One acquisition was supposed to be his way out. But here's the really beautiful part. When we went public with the espionage evidence, it triggered investigations into his other acquisitions. 3 other companies filed lawsuits, and his whole empire came crashing down like dominoes. Arthur's currently looking at 8 to 12 years in federal prison. His legal team tried to plea bargain by throwing Melissa under the bus, claiming she was the mastermind and he was just a victim of manipulation. Didn't work. The timeline clearly shows he initiated contact and planned the whole operation. As for Melissa, that's more complicated. About 3 months ago, she showed up at my apartment. Apparently, Arthur kicked her out when the indictments came down. She looked like hell, lost weight, hadn't been sleeping, the works. "Andrew," she said, "I know I don't deserve to ask for anything, but I need help." Turns out the 8% equity she retained was tied up in legal proceedings. She couldn't access the money because of the criminal investigation, and Arthur had convinced her to quit her side consulting work months ago. She was basically broke, living on credit cards and crashing on friends' couches. Arthur said he loved me, she told me. He said we were going to build something amazing together. I thought I was finally going to be seen as more than just your wife. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. "You were seen as more than that," I said. "By me, by our employees, by the people whose lives our technology saved. But it wasn't enough because it wasn't dramatic enough, wasn't prestigious enough. You wanted to be worshipped, not respected." She broke down crying, begging me to take her back, saying she'd made a terrible mistake and just wanted to fix things. "Melissa," I said, "I hope you figure out how to be happy with yourself, but that's not my problem anymore." I gave her the number for a decent lawyer who could help her navigate the equity situation, and that was it. She moved back to her parents' place in Phoenix last month. I heard she's working at a marketing firm now, making about 1/10 of what she was pulling in equity distributions from Helix One. Meanwhile, Helix One is absolutely crushing it. Without the drama and the internal sabotage, we've been able to focus on what we do best. We landed 2 massive contracts with hospital networks and launched our rare disease diagnostic platform in Europe. More importantly, the team culture is incredible now. Everyone knows they're here because they're good at what they do, not because they're navigating some corporate political game. We hired 5 new engineers, including 2 who left Arthur's other companies when his empire imploded. Helix One is valued at $340 million now, and we're looking at going public within the next 2 years. I own 72% of the company outright, and every dollar of that valuation was built on technology I created and relationships I fostered. Arthur thought he could steal my life's work by stealing my wife. Instead, he just helped me realize how strong that life's work actually was. Thanks for following this journey, Reddit. Your support during the worst part of this whole mess meant more than you know.